Hello everyone, my name is Jimmy and welcome to The Last Lap. In today's video we're going to be breaking down everything from the first playoff race of the season, the Southern 500. But before we hop into it, just want to remind you guys to hit that like button and subscribe button. We greatly appreciate it if you did that, and you can also check out our social media pages, which will be linked in the description. And as always, I have my friend and co-host Matthew joining me on the show. And just so you guys know, if I seem a little out of it, my face seems a little jacked up, talking a little bit slow, it's because 3 days ago I got my wisdom teeth removed, so still recovering from that. I'm probably about 80 to 90%, so just stick with me for this video. Hopefully by the next one I'll be 100%. But anyways, Matthew, how's it feel to be back on the show and break down this crazy Southern 500 that we saw?
I am not doing great after last night. How about you?
Yeah, same with me. I'm in Spain without the S there. I think you and I are both over there right now in Spain without the S. So that's it.
Yep. I haven't recovered, as you can tell.
Yeah, Sunday night was a bit rough for both of our drivers. So real quick, I want to talk about the Xfinity finish because that was really good. Kyle Larson and Sheldon Creed, they were battling side by side for the final few laps. They made some contact. Noah Gragson slid by. Sheldon Creed tried to pull the video game move that Kyle Larson did last year in the Cup race. But eventually Noah Gragson got by and got the win. And Noah Gragson almost passed out on live TV once again. But thankfully he was okay, got some water and all that stuff. So just wanted to talk about that Xfinity finish. That was really cool. Onto the Cup race though. Daniel Suarez, he had to start at the rear because he failed tech 3 times. And he had to do a pass-through penalty at the green flag. Thankfully, just a few laps in, there was a rain caution though, so that helped him get back on the lead lap pretty quick. Logano and Byron, they hopped out to the lead pretty early, and then Austin Dillon and Chase Briscoe, they fell back pretty early. Pretty coincidental, Logano and Byron were at the front of the field for this Darlington race, since what happened in the spring race between those two drivers. Kyle Larson came to pit road early with the hood up. It was an undiagnosed issue with the engine. He goes 4 laps down, and then here comes where I get on the flight to Spain without the S. So Chase Elliott, he hit the wall going into turn 1, ended up spinning out, and then got hit again by Chase Briscoe. That would end his day. They tried their best to repair whatever it was under that car, but not even the 10-minute damage time clock could help them fix whatever the problem was. So he was done for the day. William Byron would win the first stage, and then he reported an issue as well. I don't think it was exactly what Kyle Larson, what his issue was, but William Byron kept running. Ross Chastain, he came back to pit road for some type of suspension issue, and then the trouble for Larson continues. He spun off of turn 4 all on his own, and at this point, the Joe Gibbs Racing cars, they came to life. They were like 1, 2, 3, 4, or 1, 2, 4, and 5 for most of the second stage. And then Logano, Suarez, Christopher Bell, and William Byron, all playoff drivers, were fighting really hard inside the top 10. And Bell and Suarez got into it a little bit. Daniel Suarez was not too happy about Christopher Bell because they made contact. Suarez got into the wall. And then Kyle Busch would end up winning stage 2. And then some scary stuff in stage 3. Kevin Harvick's car was engulfed with flames in the middle of green flag pit stops. He thankfully got out of the car, and this is the 3rd time now we've seen a car kind of catch on fire because of either like rubber buildup or something catching the foam and lighting that on fire. Kevin Harvick was not too happy with NASCAR. He called out NASCAR, said the safety of the cars is not great, says that the cars are built of explicative parts and other stuff. And I'll throw my comments about that in a minute, but he was very much not happy with NASCAR there. And then green flag pit stops happened again. Denny Hamlin, he pitted a lot later than Truex and Kyle Busch and fell way behind as far as track position goes. And then things get even crazier if this race wasn't already intense. So Martin Truex Jr., the leader of the race, loses power steering and overheats and has to pit and ends his day, arguably the dominant car of the race. And then Kyle Busch takes the lead from Aaron Truex Jr., and there's a caution for Cody Ware with 27 laps to go. He spun or his car stopped on the track or something. And then Kyle Busch blows his engine under caution on the front stretch. So he has to pit and he is out of the race. So in like the span of 5 or 10 laps, the two most dominant cars out of the race. Absolutely insane. And then that leaves Erik Jones, a non-playoff driver, in the lead on this restart. He's able to hold off Tyler Reddick and everybody else. And then Denny Hamlin, he slowly starts to catch Erik Jones, but is unable to make the pass. And Erik Jones wins his second Southern 500 while holding off his ex-teammate in Denny Hamlin in doing so, getting the 43 car, its 200th career win, 55 years to the day, the last time that car won at Darlington, and that was with, of course, the King, Richard Petty. So, fantastic ending to the race. Very happy for Erik Jones. I'll go over the top 10 and where the other playoff drivers finished, and then I'll let Matthew give his thoughts, and I'll kind of bounce back off of him. So, the top 10, Erik Jones, Denny Hamlin, Tyler Reddick, Joey Logano, Christopher Bell, Michael McDowell 6th, and Brad Keselowski 7th. Great run for those cars. William Byron 8th, Bubba Wallace in the number 45 car finishes 9th, and Alex Bowman rounds out the top 10. And other playoff drivers, Kyle Larson 12th, Ryan Blaney 13th, Austin Cindric 16th, Austin Dillon 17th, Daniel Suarez 18th, Ross Chastain 20th, Chase Briscoe 27th, Kyle Busch 30th, Kevin Harvick 33rd, and Chase Elliott 36th. So that's where all the playoff drivers ended up. So Matthew, go ahead and tell everybody your reactions from this crazy Southern 500 that we saw.
Well, I have no idea where to start, actually. I could start on the absolute shameful from Toyota for basically giving the engines are not worth a crap to the two best cars all night long. Or I could talk about the regular season champion. Where did he go? I mean, I didn't know he was in the race. I mean, he was nowhere near to be found. But I'm gonna save that for later. I want to talk about the guy that needs the most attention from this weekend, and that's Erik Jones, of course, the race winner, our 17th different winner of the season. And man, it is great for this kid. I mean, this kid has had a very underrated year this year. He should have won Talladega. If he didn't make that one move on the last lap, he could have been in the playoffs. And it was even crazier. He could be in Kansas. Not Kansas. He could be going to Kansas knowing that he'll be in the second round, basically, if it wasn't for that one move at Talladega. But, man, it is so great to see the iconic number 43 back in victory lane. Of course, to the King, Richard Petty. Unfortunately, he wasn't at the racetrack, but apparently he's getting Erik Jones' hat ready for when he comes back to the shop, like what Erik Jones said in his post-race interview. But this is an amazing story. Richard Petty Motorsports over the past few years has been on a downtrend, basically, and especially with like lack of funding and sponsorship. They were a single car team, and I mean, there were a couple of times when we didn't even know Richard Petty Motorsports was going to even survive in the Cup Series anymore. But that was until this year when they got GMS Racing. When GMS Racing basically merged with Richard Petty Motorsports, became Petty GMS. It's mostly GMS Racing, but it has the Petty branding basically. And I feel like it has helped that organization this year, especially with the next gen car, evening the playing field. And we have seen Erik Jones bring that 43 car up more in the top 10 and top 5 area than it has been ever, basically. So, I'm happy for Erik Jones. I'm happy for Petty GMS. And they have a bright future, especially when now they're going to have Noah Gragson in the 42 next year. And Noah Gregson's definitely going to be way better than Ty Dillon. Let's just be clear there. So, I have pure confidence that Noah Gregson's going to make that car better from this year basically. And Yeah, happy for Eric Jones, especially it's been hard on him. I mean, he basically got left out of Joe Gibbs for Christopher Bell. He had to go to Richard Petty Motorsports. Basically, was a downgrade, and it's great to see him back in victory lane. So I'm happy for Eric Jones. I've been following this kid since he won his first won his first truck race, and like it was only like his second or third start, I think, in 2013. I still remember that at Phoenix. He was driving for Kyle Busch Motorsports, and that's when I knew this kid Eric Jones has something. So it's great to see him finally get some success again. Yeah, okay. Now let's get to the Toyota thing, which I'm not happy about at all. I could not sleep at all last night because that picture of Kyle Busch's car up in smoke, just like that killed me inside. And I thought I was seeing things, to be honest. I noticed some white smoke come out of the car. I'm like, am I seeing things? I mean, I must be getting nervous or something that he's leaked. Next you know, there was more smoke coming out. I'm like, well, am I surprised? Nope, because this is how the 18 car is this year, especially since ever since he announced that he hasn't signed a deal, something bad always happens. So am I surprised? Nope. I expect more of this bad luck to happen the whole rest of the first round. If this is the bad luck we're getting already. So not really. That was painful. That was so painful. Yeah. And thanks a lot, Toyota, for building engines that are not worth a crap. So appreciate it. Can't wait for Kyle Busch to drive a Chevy next year. Appreciate it. Okay. And now let's talk about the regular season championship. The guy, where was he at the whole race? Like I said during our playoff predictions video, Chase Elliott could not afford to have a bad race. Even though he had the most points out of anybody, he still couldn't have a bad race because of how tight the field is. And all Chase Elliott had to do was keep his car straight, don't get in any trouble, and he'll be good to go to the second round. Well, he already used his mulligan. Now it's not panic mode, of course. He's still 14 points to the good, so as long as he doesn't have bad luck the next two races, he'll be fine for sure. But that was his mulligan, and he cannot afford to have any more bad races like that. I mean, this is the worst case scenario for Chase Elliott. I mean, he had to use his mulligan in the first race of the playoffs, no stage points, and he finished dead last. So that was basically worst case scenario for him. And he is so fortunate that he has 14 points to the good, because it could have been way worse, especially if Kevin Harvick didn't have an issue, or Chase Briscoe didn't have an issue, or Ross, Larson, etc. But yeah, he cannot afford to have another race like Darlington. So he's gonna have to be careful here, and careful for these next two races. But it's not panic mode, so I don't expect anything else catastrophe to happen unless he does another one of his traditional cell spins. I mean, we all seen the highlights this year. And and by the way, let's just talk about this. Where was the NBC interview for Chase Elliott? Where was his interview? All right, he didn't want to talk to anybody. He's the regular season champion. You think we will hear something about what happened with Chase Elliott? But apparently he was too mad to do an interview. So I'm not gonna. I hear this all the time with other drivers that, hey, that's not a good example to follow. Well, Chase Elliott just did that. I'm sure that bandwagon fan base has a pile of excuses to why he didn't do an interview. So that doesn't surprise me at all. But anyways, that was one crazy beginning to a playoffs. Congratulations to Erik Jones, and yeah, we'll see how Kansas goes with if the start of playoffs was already this crazy. I want to see how it is on Kansas on a mile and a half, in which the races this year on a mile and a half, besides Texas, have been really good. So I cannot wait for Kansas.
Man, you just love throwing shots at my driver, don't you? Man, um, he didn't do
Hey,
an interview.
I can't help it. His Nolgiani fan base just makes it so easy, man. Except for you, of course. But I mean, like 99% of them.
He didn't do an interview for NBC, but he did. There are videos of him doing interviews outside the infield care center. So he did do some interviews. I guess NBC just wasn't one of them. But I will give props to Kyle Busch. He did do a very good interview. I think he definitely has changed because he said it himself in the press conferences the past few weeks that he's going to need to change his personality a little bit to appear to other teams and sponsors and stuff like that. So can't have that old Kyle Busch where he gets ticked off and runs in his holler and doesn't say anything or says a bunch of bad stuff. So I will give props to Kyle Busch. He did do a very good interview. I think it's good for him to, for his new team next year and all that stuff. So
He still should have said in his interview, or just this the mirror from Darlington last year. The Toyota engines basically run like you know what.
yeah, or he could have put a Kevin Hart from this week that Toyota builds crappy parts too, I guess. But anyways, you summed up everything pretty good. I'm gonna go over the playoff standings as well as we head into Kansas next week. So Joey Logano is now at the top of the board. He has plus 38 above the cut line. William Byron plus 32. Denny Hamlin plus 30. Christopher Bell plus 28. Tyler Reddick 23 above the cut line. Ryan Blaney plus 20. Kyle Larson plus 17. Ross Chastain plus 15. And then things start to get interesting with Chase Elliott in ninth. He is plus 14 points above the cut line. Bowman plus 10. Kyle Busch plus 8. Daniel Suarez plus 2. And then below the cut line, we have Austin Cindric minus 2, Austin Dillon minus 4, Briscoe minus 10, and Kevin Harvick minus 13. So Kevin Harvick has some work to do over these next few weeks. Hopefully we'll see him bounce back because we both had him moving on to the next round. So that is definitely going to be an interesting story as we head into Kansas. And like you said, I'm excited for Kansas. The mile and a half to put on really good racing this year, and I wouldn't expect any less as we return there for the second time this season. But let's go ahead and we'll rate the race first, and then we'll do our fantasy update. So I love that Darlington is the opening race of the playoffs. It's the toughest racetrack on the schedule, one of the longest races of the season, right up there with the Coke 600. It's a crown jewel race. Everybody wants to win it, and like we saw all of the drama happen. Like we said in our playoff preview video, who's going to get struck first? And it was Chase Elliott, Kevin Harvick, Kyle Busch, Kyle Larson had trouble, Ross Chastain had trouble. A bunch of drivers, playoff drivers had trouble, and I love it being the opening race of the playoffs. But for me, I think I'll give it an 8 out of 10. That's it for me. So, Matthew, what are you going to rate the race from Darlington?
Well, this was an amazing night of racing. To start the playoffs at the famous Darlington Speedway, a sold-out crowd this year. This was the 7th race this year that was a sold-out crowd for a race, and it was amazing to watch. A lot of craziness, a lot of interesting stories that made it interesting, a lot of strategy. I'm going to give it an 8 out of 10 myself also. I love Darlington just because the uniqueness of that track, especially with the banking and turns 1, 2 versus turn 3 or 4 to multiple lanes. Basically, you can use the bottom, you can use the high lane. And I feel like a lot of these shorter track races this year, well, I'm not calling Darlington a short track, but the tracks are shorter than a mile and a half, that's what I mean. I feel like over time, the more of these teams are understanding this car, I feel like the races have gone a little bit better in terms of passing. They might have found some ways to tweak, that bubble, that dirty air, basically. I feel like they were able to pass a lot better in this race. But Yeah, I'm gonna give it an 8 out of 10.
You and I would know almost firsthand what it's like racing at Darlington because we've both been doing that a lot on iRacing the past week with the trucks, and it is a very tough track to race on. So uh, I can only
Tell
somewhat
me about it.
I can only somewhat understand how difficult it is to drive those Cup cars around Darlington. But yeah, that's gonna do it for our ratings. We're gonna give our fantasy update, and then we'll get out of here. So for this week, it was a very tight battle between you and I. You had 207 points. I had 201. And for total points, I have a 5 point lead. I have 4,906. You have 4,901. So it's going to keep being like this all throughout the playoffs. I'm excited for it. But, anyways, Matthew, do you have anything else to say before we go ahead and wrap the video up?
Um, well, nah, not too much. I feel like I already said a lot of what I wanted to say. Um, well, yeah. As you can tell, I haven't recovered from last night. Still, it still haunts me. Just seeing the TV with white smoke everywhere. That that was the most painful race this year. It was worse than Vegas. It was worse than Gateway. It was worse than Pocono. This was worse because Kyle Busch basically had the most, that had the best, and led the most laps basically of the night. And with Martin Truex's issue, I didn't even think about, could this happen to Kyle, because we saw this happen with Hendrick that same night, with Byron Larson having similar issues, but they were able to fix it. I didn't think about that. I should have, but I didn't because I thought this was finally the night. But yeah, that's going to sting for a long time. And I had a lot more things to say about Chase Elliott. I was so prepared for this. But when that happened, I'm like, forget it. I don't care anymore. This sucks.
Yeah, I wouldn't have been able to hear the end of it if Chase Elliott crashed and finished dead last and Kyle Busch won. I really wouldn't have been able to hear it from you. But unfortunately, both our drivers had a terrible Darlington race. But there's still 2 more races left in the round before the round of 12. But yeah, that's gonna wrap up for this video. Thank you guys for watching. Thank you guys for sticking up with me if I was sounding a little bit weird. My wisdom teeth removed and all that kind of stuff. But should be hopefully back to normal for the next video. We're going to talk Kansas, preview all that fun stuff. But until next time, we'll see you guys in the next video.